name is Tom Gaynor. I'm the co-CEO of your company, and it is my pleasure and privilege to welcome you today. Thank you for joining us. Being together at our annual meeting is important. We've always had a bit of a different style of annual meetings compared to that of most public companies. I think that stems from our heritage from being a family business. To some degree, the early Markel annual meetings as a public company were like Thanksgiving dinners where we celebrated the fact that we made it through another year. And just as Thanksgiving is an important celebration and a time to express gratitude, so is this annual meeting. We're glad you're at the table with us and part of this tradition. It is an annual milestone. It is appropriate to gather and celebrate the progress of another year of working on the dream of building one of the world's great companies. Thank you for joining us. It means a great deal to us. And before I go on, I want to thank the cooks who put the Thanksgiving meal together. Georgie Engels, who I don't know if we can find her here, Shannon Martin, Cynthia Fetterman, Cynthia Green, Matt Johnson. These are the people who make all these sorts of things. Jen Blackwell, make all these things happen. So please join me in thanking them. So in just a minute, our chairman, Steve Markel, will make a few comments and conduct the formal business of the annual meeting. Following Steve, our chief financial officer, Jeremy Noble, will provide you with an update on our financial results produced by our three engines of insurance, investments, and Markel Ventures from 2021 and through the first quarter of 2022. After Jeremy, our co-CEO, Richie Witt, will share his thoughts on our insurance business. Then I'll return with some comments about Markel overall and our future. At that point, we will gladly address your questions. We welcome your questions, and we cherish our partnership with you, our shareholders. We know that we could not build Markel into one of the world's great companies without your consistent, long-term support, and we appreciate your shared commitment to Markel. There are two microphones in the arena. And if you would like to ask a question, please go to one of the microphones after our formal presentations, and I will recognize you so that you may ask your question. When called upon, please let us know your name, where you're from, and confirm that you are a shareholder, since this is a shareholders meeting. Then ask your question. Out of courtesy to your fellow shareholders, please just ask one question, and then we will do our best to answer it. If you would like to ask more than one question, please get back in line, and we'll do our best to hear from everyone and answer as many questions as possible. Following the Q&A period, we'll adjourn and head out of the arena to the pavilion where we can continue conversations amidst some food, some music, and some refreshments. Thanks again for coming, and with that, let me turn it over to Steve. Steve? Hold your place, please.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Tom. And I'd like to also welcome you all here today. We really do appreciate you joining us. I'm Steve Markel, Chairman of the Board of the Markel Corporation, and I welcome you to the 2022 Annual Meeting of Shareholders. We'll cover the business fairly quickly, and I have a couple of other comments, and as Tom said, we'll turn it over to the rest of the management team for our agenda. A representative of KPMG is present and will be available to respond to questions during the Q&A session that is to follow. I now call the annual meeting of shareholders to order. The polls are now open for voting. If anyone would like to vote in person, please immediately see the Inspector of Elections located in the sound booth at the back of the auditorium. Notice of the annual meeting was distributed to all of our shareholders of record as of March 3, 2022. I can report that a quorum is present today for the purposes of conducting the business of this meeting. Pursuant to the company's bylaws, the only matters properly coming before the annual meeting of shareholders today are those that were set forth in the annual meeting, notice of annual meeting and proxy statement previously distributed. The first item of business is the election of directors. The director nominees, and I'd ask them to stand and be recognized as I read their names, are Mark Beska, Bruce Cannell, Tom Gaynor, Greta Harris, Morgan Housel, Diane Leopold, Tony Markel, Steve Markel, Harold Morrison, Mike O'Reilly, Lynn Puckett, and Richie Witt. Ladies and gentlemen, would y'all stand up and be recognized? I can assure you this is a hard-working group of really important individuals who really do contribute meaningfully to the governance of the Markel Corporation. Thank you all. The board has recommended a vote for each of these nominees. Before moving on to the next agenda item, I'd like to recognize Lem Lewis, who is retiring today from our board of directors. Lem has been a board member since 2007 and has served as the chairman of our audit committee since 2013. And in this role, Lem has done an amazingly wonderful job. Lem has had previously a distinguished career with Landmark Communication, where he served as executive vice president and chief financial officer. He served on other boards as well, including Owens & Minor and Dollar Tree, also the Federal Reserve Bank of Richmond, and many, many charitable organizations. In so many ways, Lem has been a pioneer and an impactful leader. I want us all to thank Lem for his many contributions to the company over the years. Lem, we wish you the very, very best. I'd also like to recognize Morgan Hussle, who's joined the board of directors in November of 2021. This is Morgan's first annual shareholders meeting, so I'd like to make sure you get a little bit of an introduction to Morgan. He's a partner at the Collaborative Fund, and his book, The Psychology of Money, has sold over 1 million copies and has been translated into 46 different languages. Morgan is a real thought leader, brings a breadth of experience and insight to our board. Morgan, welcome to Markel. We're thrilled to have you with us. Thanks for joining our team. Back to the agenda and the business. Item number 2 on our agenda gives shareholders the opportunity to approve on an advisory basis our executive compensation. And agenda item number 3 concerns the ratification of the selection of KPMG by the Audit Committee of the Board of Directors to serve as the company's independent registered public accounting firm for the year ending December 31, 2022. The board has also recommended a vote for items 2 and 3. This concludes a review of the matters to be voted on. I can declare now that the polls are closed and that based upon preliminary results, sufficient votes have been cast to elect the nominees for director, to approve Markel's executive compensation, and to select the ratification, or to ratify the selection of KPMG as our auditors. The final votes will be tabulated later today and reported on Form 8-K to be filed in connection with this meeting. All items of business have now been completed, and the formal meeting of the formal annual meeting of the shareholders is now concluded. Before I move on, there are a couple of other items I'd like to deal with. Every year, Markel selects winners of the Markel Style Award. This is an award, and it's a very important award within Markel, where a few employees across the globe who best embody the values outlined in the Markel Style are recognized. A copy of the Markel Style is printed on the back of that small agenda brochure that you were given when you entered today, and I'd strongly encourage you to read and think about the Markel Style if you've not done so already. But the Markel culture, the Markel Style, is a critical part of Markel's long-term success, and this Markel Style Award given to those few outstanding employees is is an important event. I'd like to recognize them today. Their names are on the screen behind me, and ask them all to stand as I also read their names and thank them very much for their service to Markel. The winners this year are Alvaro Danvila from Madrid, Spain, Misty High School from Bedford, Texas, Kendra Johnson from Chicago, Illinois, Mike Kozlowski from Robesano, Pennsylvania, Wendy McDonald from Glen Allen, Nicole Michaels from Alpharetta, Georgia, Joy Mickelson from Glen Allen, Jessica O'Neill from Plano, Texas, Justin Taylor from Glen Allen, Jessica Tittle from Glen Allen, and finally Ben Waters from Leeds, UK. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very, very much. Your service to Markel is inspiring and truly important. Finally, I'd like to share a few comments about the recent organizational changes that we announced last week. As we indicated, Richie Witt will be retiring in the next year, at which Tom will become the sole CEO of Markel. Upon Richie's retirement, Jeremy Noble will assume the leadership responsibilities for Markel's global insurance platform operations. Consequently, a recruiting process has already begun for our new Chief Financial Officer. We also announced that with immediate effect, Mike Heaton will become the Executive Vice President of Markel Corporation, and that Andrew Crowley would assume Mike's role as President of Markel Ventures. A lot of changes going on, but they're all very, very positive. These changes are part of an evolution of the Markel Corporation that continues to take place to ensure the durability of your company. I cannot underscore enough the value of the contributions that Richie has made to this organization over the last 31 years. Richie has served as co-CEO since 2016, with primary responsibilities over what has become our global insurance platform. Over the course of his career, in addition to being co-CEO, Richie has had numerous senior leadership roles within the Markel organization, including President and Chief Operating Officer, Chief Financial Officer, Controller, and Chief Administrative Officer of our Markel International operations. On behalf of all of us here today, Richie, our sincere thanks for your exemplary service. Over the next year, we'll have plenty of time to continue to celebrate Richie's career and accomplishments, and we'll certainly take advantage of his knowledge and expertise as we proceed through the various evolutions that are to take place. Regarding the organizational changes that will take place upon Richie's retirement, they do mark an important evolution for the Markel Corporation. As our investment and venture engines of the company have continued to grow, it has become necessary to evolve how the organization is organized. Tom Gaynor, as you know, has been an excellent leader and steward of Markel. Tom's new role as sole CEO reflects his tireless efforts to live and breathe the Markel style, of his vision, which has helped Markel continue its evolution into the global holding company that we are today. As CEO of Markel, Tom will ensure the stewardship and celebration of the Markel culture, the seamless and effective capital allocation process across our three engines, and the recruitment and retention of talented leaders to run our businesses. In his new role as Executive Vice President, Mike Heaton will work closely with Tom in these and other functions of the holding company. and Markel Ventures will remain in great hands with Andrew Crowley. Our insurance engine will build on its record-setting strengths in 2021 and the years ahead under Jeremy Noble's leadership, and will recruit a new CFO to continue the amazing work that Jeremy has already done. In summary, I can say I've never been more excited about the future. The future for what began as a dream of my grandfather's in 1930, a dream that has set in motion the values that are designed to help Markel to always evolve, to always seek to make those that come in contact with Markel better off for having done so. Thank you for your loyalty to the company. Onward and upward, and I turn this over to Jeremy to review the financial. Hold your place so the wind doesn't blow.
All right, thanks, Steve, and good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us, and more importantly, for your ongoing support of Markel. So no presentation from a CFO is complete without a safe harbor statement. So please recognize we may make forward-looking statements today. After all, we are talking about the Markel dream. I'll point you to the statement here, and I would encourage you to refer to our latest quarter and annual reports for further disclosures about your company. Regarding our theme for this year's meeting, I don't suppose that many of you expected me as a CFO to come up here and talk to you about the Markel dream. But I assure you that what we're talking about here is not just some whimsical tagline or marketing concept, but the foundation of who we are. As you saw from the opening video, beginning with Sam Markel and Jitney Bus Drivers, our company was born from the idea that a business can be a force for good, that businesses should serve the needs of those around them. This commitment to helping our customers, our associates, and shareholders win has powered our success over the last 90 plus years and will over the next 90 years. So as we review our financial performance, please remember that these numbers are no coincidence. They're the tangible representation of what happens when nearly 20,000 employees share a dream to serve customers, one another, and shareholders, helping everyone win in the process. And through the concerted effort of making all those who come in contact with Markel better off, we aim, brick by brick, to build one of the world's great companies. As I go through our financial results, numbers you won't see, but unequivocally are as important as our financials, are the number of customers we served in 2021 and the associates we employed, both of which reached new highs. And with regards to building the value of your company for our shareholders, the results will speak for themselves. We also grew and evolved the company in ways that cannot easily be seen or counted today, but will become more apparent in the years to come. Well, let's first consider how things are working out right now. Let's begin by looking at Markel's revenues broken out by our three engines. Our 2021 results included another record year of operating revenues, totaling $12.8 billion. The increase was driven by a 16% growth in earned premiums from our underwriting operations and 30% growth in Markel Ventures revenue compared to 2020. The combined $1.7 billion increase in earned premiums and Ventures revenues were complemented by a $1.4 billion increase in net investment revenues in 21. Back in 2018, the accounting standards changed, and we now include the change in fair value of our public equity securities in the income statement within operating revenues. And if you find that's confusing, you're not alone. Including changes in the valuation of our public equity portfolio and revenues will result in much variability in periodic results. Here at Markel, we are focused on the long-term investment performance. Understanding the variability in the timing of investment gains and losses is to be expected. The other category, our smallest, is not specifically attributable to a reportable segment, but principally relates to our Nephila insurance-linked securities and state national program services operations. The revenues from these operations are modest today, but the businesses complement and enhance our insurance capabilities. They provide optionality for the enterprise, and they make us a more strategic partner to many of our trading relationships. Transitioning to this year, we reported $2.6 billion in operating revenues in the first quarter of 2022. Net earned premiums were up 17%, driven by the growth in professional liability and general liability product lines across both of our underwriting segments. Markel Ventures revenues were up 35% in the first quarter of 2022, driven by the acquisitions of Buckner and Metromont. The combined $505 million increase in earned premiums and ventures revenues were offset by a $909 million decrease in investment revenues in the first quarter. Okay, let's look at our underwriting performance in a little more detail. Gross written premiums within our underwriting operations were $8.5 billion in 2021, compared to $7.2 billion in 2020, an increase of 19%. The increase in gross premium volume was driven by new business and more favorable rates within our professional liability and general liability product lines across both underwriting segments. Our consolidated combined ratio for 2021 was a 90, compared to a 98 in 2020, a significant improvement. 2021 included $195 million, or 3 points of losses associated with natural catastrophes, including Winter Storm Uri, the floods in Europe, and Hurricane Ida. Our 2020 consolidated combined ratio had $358 million of COVID-19 related losses and $172 million of natural catastrophe losses. Beyond the reduction in losses attributed to COVID-19, our combined ratio in 21 improved due to a lower attritional loss ratio within our insurance segment, partially offset by the impact of less favorable development on prior accident years compared to the prior year. For the first 3 months of 2022, gross written premiums were $2.5 billion compared to $2.2 billion last year, an increase of 16% as the pricing environment continues to hold up well and organic growth remains strong. Our consolidated combined ratio for the first quarter of 22 was an 89 compared to a 94 in the first quarter last year and included 2 points of net losses from the Russia-Ukraine conflict. In Q1 of last year, the impact of Winter Storm Uri added 4 points to the combined ratio, and we increased our COVID loss estimate by 1 point. So while it's still very early in the year, we are off to a very strong start with our insurance engine. Looking next at our Markel Ventures engine, our segment revenues increased 30%, $3.6 billion in 2021. The increase was driven by a growth of $639 million within the construction services businesses, primarily due to an increased contribution from Lansing and the contribution of our August 2021 acquisition of Buckner, as well as improved pricing and increased demand more broadly in 2021. We also earned record EBITDA of $403 million, a 10% increase over 2020, while we benefited from increases in operating revenues, operating income, EBITDA, and net income to shareholders in 21 were impacted by the increased costs of materials and labor across many of our businesses, reflecting current economic conditions. In the first quarter of 22, Markel Ventures revenues grew 35% to $950 million compared to the same period in 21, and EBITDA was up 18% to $96 million. The increase in operating revenues in the first quarter of 22 compared to 21 was driven by a $109 million contribution from our acquisition of Buckner and our December 21 acquisition of Metromont, as well as the impact of increased demand and higher prices in many of our other businesses. The increase in EBITDA for the first quarter of 2022 compared to 21 was driven by the impact of higher revenues and improved operating results at our construction services businesses and consulting services businesses and the contribution of Metromont. Turning to our investment engine, the next slide shows the composition and growth of our investment portfolio over the past 5 years and where we stand at the end of March. Our business strategy recognizes the importance of both consistent underwriting and operating profits and superior investment returns to build shareholder value. Over the past 5 years through 2021, our 5-year average investment return was 8.3%, which included 18.6% equity returns. The increases and decreases over the years are largely due to fluctuations in market values during the period. But as you've heard before, it's the results over long periods of time that count. At the end of March, equities represented 31% of our investment portfolio and 61% of shareholders' equity. So I mentioned earlier that the growth and the value of your company is best seen and understood over long periods of time. In our shareholders letter this year, which I would encourage you to read if you haven't had a chance already, we spent time reflecting on how Markel has grown and evolved over the past 15 years. We focus on performance measures in 5-year increments. As always, we think it's critical to view our financial results over meaningful periods of time. Quarterly and annual results are subject to volatility from investment market swings and natural catastrophes, among other things, such as a global pandemic. Over longer time frames, a more meaningful and accurate picture emerges. And for many years, we've measured ourselves in 5-year increments. Thinking this way creates better win-win-win outcomes and sustainable alignment of interests among everyone committed to Markel. These 5-year views of revenues and comprehensive income to shareholders show that we've experienced dramatic growth in the size and scale of Markel and highlight our evolution. Each engine has grown and the composition of your company has changed over time, which has been true since we began back in 1930 with a dream to serve others and do business. It continues to be true today as we strive to create those win-win-win outcomes. And along the way, we've become a more durable, more sustainable, and more resilient organization compared to 5, 10, 15 years ago. We're here to build the value of your company, and over time, and we appreciate the responsibility to be good stewards of your capital. We're often asked, how have we been so successful over these long periods of time? And we can answer that question in multiple ways. We can look at the 3-engine architecture and the positive financial outcomes, but we'd also point to our values and our mindset. The Markel style, our value statement, attracts others. It's why we have the exceptionally talented associates that work here and that you'll get a chance to spend some time with later, and why the owners and operators of wonderful businesses choose to partner with Markel. And our mindset, this focus on win-win-win architecture, has propelled us forward in aspiring to build one of the world's great companies. And we're only getting started. So thank you for your support. In closing, as Richie gets ready to come up here and discuss the important role of our insurance engine to the overall dream, I'd like to just take a moment to express my gratitude for his leadership over 3 decades in nurturing and perpetuating our culture. As we thoughtfully work through the transition of leadership over our insurance operations, I could not be more confident or bullish on our prospects because of what Richie has helped build. He's also been a tremendous mentor, role model, and friend to me and to many, and few have done as much for this company as he has. With that, I'd like to turn things over to Richie Webb.
Thanks, buddy. How you like those few extra degrees on the thermometer this year? Pretty good? Pretty good. It's still a little chilly, but a lot better than last year. As Steve and Jeremy stated so well, and as the theme for the meeting says, the Markel dream lives on. To make all people that come in contact with Markel better for having done so. And the insurance engine has a significant role to play in achieving our dream. Markel's 3 engines work together to make the whole greater than the sum of the parts. Our 3-engine structure provides diversification and helps us optimize capital allocation for the long term. It fine-tunes the use of Markel's financial resources for sustainable success. When the insurance engine generates underwriting profits, and that is our goal every single year, those funds can be deployed into insurance, investments, ventures, and repurchasing shares. Over the past 5 years, we've taken multiple steps to strengthen the insurance engine, building the power of the platform. And these steps are positioning us to achieve our ultimate aspiration for the insurance platform, to build the leading global specialty insurer. This will be the insurance engine's lasting contribution to Markel's aspirations to be one of the world's great companies. As we position the insurance engine for the long run, we are focused on 3 primary goals. First, building a consistent top financial performer. Second, driving a distinctive talent advantage. And third, growing our market leadership. By pursuing all 3 of these strategies, we've set the table for our customers, our employees, and our shareholders to win. So, starting off with building a consistent top performer, 21 really demonstrated what top financial performance looks like. We turned in record underwriting profits. The premium we touched across the platform grew by 20%, and our combined ratio was the 4th lowest in the past 30 years. Now our job is to take that consistency to the next level. An important part of consistency comes from managing our insurance portfolio, focusing on lines of business that produce the highest returns on capital. Today, we are at historic lows on unprofitable, or what we call red lines, and at all-time high on the green lines, showing healthy profitability. We've also managed our portfolio by de-risking our property business, again, using the power of the platform. In 2020, Markel Specialty started ceding 90% of its hurricane and earthquake insurance risk to Nephila, the Markel unit that is the leader in the insurance-linked securities market. This was done because that business was actually had a better risk return and volatility profile for those investors. Starting in January 21, we also transferred our Markel Global Reinsurance property cat book to Nephila. 21 demonstrated the value of this strategy. In the second worst insured loss cat year on record, we reduced our cat losses to 3 points on our combined ratio. By de-risking our property business, we freed up approximately $500 million of capital, which along with the underwriting profits we generated in 21, largely self-funded our growth during the year. We've also placed a strong emphasis on expense control and cost transformation. As a prime example, over the past 5 years, we've reduced our direct and controllable expense component of our expense ratio by over 500 basis points. All of these steps will help us deliver on our commitment to be a consistent top financial performer, regardless of market conditions. Second, we want to drive a distinct talent advantage. Our businesses seek to first of all, retain, develop, and recruit engaged and exceptional talent, which will be key to delivering sustained industry leadership. To do this successfully, we will operate in the spirit of the Markel style. Our job is to make everyone who comes in contact with Markel better for having done so. And as Alan Kirshner always says, the Markel style is our secret sauce. Markel has long felt like a special place to work, and we're going to be intentional to keep it that way. There's indeed a war for talent out there, and our culture gives us an advantage in the fight. Based on our recent Korn Ferry-led engagement survey, approximately 90% of our insurance employees are proud to work for Markel and would recommend it as a great place to work. That's a world-class result, and this is a world-class culture, and it's helping us bring in talent that will help us grow the insurance platform. We added over 1,000 people in 21 across our insurance operations, and we're likely to do something similar again this year. We are also growing diversity at Markel, something that will always be critical to understanding the needs of our diverse customer base. Over the last 3 years, we've increased the number of new hires who identify as an ethnic minority by 20%, and the percentage of people of color at the management level increased by a similar percentage. Within Markel Specialty, half of our regional presidents are now women. We are pleased to have partnered with McKinsey to offer leadership and core skill training to diverse sets of employees, including their Black, Hispanic, and Asian dedicated programs. We're continuing to do more. We've invested to support a wide range of employee-led D&I networks and resource groups that provide employees support, development, and engage in our community outreach. We're also expanding the ways we attract new talent into our industry, something that we really need to focus on. People don't understand what a tremendous career they can have in insurance via scholarships, internships, and apprenticeships. We're proud of this progress, but we also realize there's a lot of work left to be done. In the Markel style, we call for providing an atmosphere in which people can reach their personal potential. That means all people from all backgrounds. So these efforts I've outlined for you, they're really simply the latest iteration of our journey that we've been on all along, and we plan to continue on that journey. Third, growing our market leadership. Building the leading specialty insurer also means growing our market leadership. This means offering the broadest array of capabilities to help our customers meet and manage their most complex risk transfer and risk management needs. In the last few years, we've acquired 2 leading companies, State National, the industry leader in the program services business, and Nephila, the industry leader in ILS management. These acquisitions helped us further strengthen the power of our insurance platform and provide Markel's insurance engine with the opportunity to win, whichever way the industry winds may ultimately blow. Winds are coming out of this direction, I believe, right now. With these added building blocks, we can now build out solutions closely geared to the needs of specific clients. We have a dedicated group of leaders from across our operations, which we refer to as our synergy team, who continue to explore ways for us to work on opportunities through a combination of our insurance, reinsurance, State National, and Nephila operations. We've developed some really innovative solutions to date, but there's much more to come. These steps make it easier for customers to do business with us and for us to work more efficiently as a global company. At Markel Specialty, we've also strengthened our regional model so that we're closer to our trading partners. We're expanding our retail focus in the U.S. in areas where retailers do not use wholesalers, and we're putting a renewed focus on our programs and alternative distribution business. We are also enjoying the opportunity to grow and be more meaningful with our long-standing wholesale partners, serving their needs with high-quality products and improved digital experiences to drive ease of doing business. In Markel International, we're leveraging our London wholesale business to solve for complex risks that often require Lloyd's syndication, expertise, and leadership. And we're growing our national markets business in the UK, Europe, and Canada. We've also established Markel InsurTech Underwriters, a unit that takes advantage of new technologies to make things better, faster, and cheaper. We are collaborating globally like never before. Our 10-5-1 plan, which was spearheaded by Bob Cox, is about building a leading global specialty insurer that operates at twice the scale with consistent, strong profitability. So we're investing in talent, products, relationships, technology, data, while improving the efficiency of our process and our customer experience. 21 was the first year of 10-5-1, and we finished the year ahead of plan. We're pleased with that progress, but we recognize there's still almost 4 years to go. So as we look to the future, we're going to focus on consistent top financial performance, driving a distinctive talent advantage, and growing our market leadership to achieve our aspiration of building the leading global specialty insurer. We'll offer the broadest array of capabilities to help address our clients' most complex risk management and risk transfer needs. We'll serve our customers, we will create great outcomes for our employees, and we will build the value of this organization for our shareholders. As the Markel Insurance Engine, we are focused on the last word of the Markel style, winning. Thank you very much. Just 1 second. If I could just for a second, I'll just a couple words on a personal note. Obviously, we talked about last week, my retirement was announced. I've always targeted roughly 60. And yeah, this is maybe a little bit early, but I think it's perfect timing, quite honestly. We are enjoying record success at Markel. 3 engines are doing wonderfully. Leaders like Jeremy and Tom and Mike and Andrew are ready for new challenges. And I just couldn't be happier for you guys. Really just couldn't be happier. I will always stay connected to the company. I've been around it way too long to walk completely away, even if that is just as an enthusiastic shareholder and supportive shareholder. I want to thank Alan, Tony, and Steve for the trust you placed in me and Tom to be co-CEOs. I want to thank you, Tom, for our partnership over 3 decades. And I just want to say that Markel is not about one person, particularly not this one person. Maybe Alan Kirshner. It might be about Alan Kirshner. I'm not totally certain. It's really about the 20,000 people of Markel who live the style each day and make this such a special place. So thank you very much, and let me hand it to Tom.
Thank you. Thank you, Richie. Today is an important day in the history of Markel. The organizational changes that he described recently and Richie just spoke of. And I want to thank the board of directors for their confidence in our team and their support of all of us as we continue to follow the dream of building one of the world's great companies. I'd also like to take a moment to thank Richie specifically for his partnership and leadership of our insurance operations. Richie embodies the Markel style through and through. He believes in hard work and a zealous pursuit of excellence while keeping a sense of humor. He follows our creed of honesty and fairness in all of his dealings each and every day and has lived every word of the Markel style for over 30 years. He completely and without exception dedicated himself to the ideas and values of Markel, and we simply would not be the company that we are today without him. He and I have worked side by side and towards the same goals for over 3 decades. We were both kids when we joined Markel, and it has been my good fortune to know that my partner shared the same fundamental goals and values in building Markel. Let's just take a moment and please join me in recognizing and thanking Richie for his singular dedication to Markel and to each of you that benefit from your association with this company. He gives of himself completely to make all of us better off, and I cannot thank him enough for his efforts and his example. Thank you, Richie. So thanks again for all of you being here today. Let me switch gears and talk a little bit about the dream of building one of the world's great companies. The dream of Markel is a human one. While we report financial results and quantify our progress with numbers, I think it's important to recognize that those numbers are the outcome of what we do on a human basis every day. The numbers sum up the quantifiable results from our human enterprise that is dedicated to the idea of win-win-win for the people who are the customers, associates, and shareholders of Markel. They are the outcomes of the process, not the process in and of itself. As an old saying goes, the map is not the territory. The numbers we share with you are a map. The territory is the underlying reality for the people of the 3 engines of Markel. Numbers describe the results that flow from our win-win-win beliefs. We believe that every associate should win by being part of this company. We celebrate the idea that because of what we do in our business, our associates can provide for their families and their communities. We cherish the idea that they can continuously learn, that they can be creative, and as we say in the Markel style, they can reach their personal potential. We also believe that every customer should win when they do business with us. We believe that if we serve our customers by doing things for them rather than to them, that they'll want to do business with us again. We believe that they'll be more likely to vouch for us and refer their friends and associates to us. We believe that this long-term, repeating and reinforcing system creates the ultimate in sustainability as the cycle repeats itself over and over again and perpetuates itself over time. Finally, we believe that if we dedicate ourselves to serving our fellow associates and our customers, that we will earn fair and appropriate returns on the capital our shareholders provided us with to operate the business. This is the third win of win, 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 and all three groups need to win in order for Markel to continue to exist. These are qualitative human aspirations, not numerical goals. Every number we report to you and discuss flows from this qualitative architecture and the belief system of win-win-win. As noted in Jeremy's comments, the numbers he shared that describe our long-term financial results from our insurance, investment, and ventures businesses are good. I hope you draw encouraging conclusions about our future when you see another year of progress like what took place in 2021. Now let's talk about the future of this dream. As Patrick Henry once said, I know of no way to judge the future but by the past. So let me start by chatting for a few minutes about the past to help us think about the future. I'll do so in 12-year batches, if you'll indulge me. Now, I've got several reasons to think about things in 12-year time frames. We, like all companies, report our financial results in 12-month intervals. 12 months equals a year, and annual meetings and annual reports all flow from things measured over 12-month intervals. 12 months may make a year, but a single year doesn't provide sufficient evidence or data for what is really happening at Markel. As such, I'm going to review 12 years at a time to give you a fuller sense of how our dream at Markel continues to develop. I'll start out with a picture. The image is of two bottles of Johnnie Walker Scotch, one of the red label and one of the black label. I'll share with you a personal preference for the black label, but both bottles are there to make a point. Now, on the red label, you see a phrase under the image of the walking man of Johnnie Walker that says, established in 1820. The origin of Johnnie Walker Scotch starts with Johnnie Walker himself. He was a grocer in Kilmarnock, Scotland. In 1820 in Scotland, governmental authorities sought to tax whiskey sales, just like today. And just as is the case today, many people seek not to pay taxes. I don't know what the Scottish term for a bootlegger was in 1820, but I think you can share my belief that they existed. Bootleg whiskey could sometimes cause physical harm, and it could vary widely in quality, just like today. In that environment, Johnnie Walker was an honest man. He took the responsibility for producing a good product seriously and did his best to blend a high-quality, safe, and dependable whiskey. I don't know if he paid taxes right away in 1820. Local legend suggests he did not, but he did in the fullness of time as his business became legitimate and scaled to a larger size. The human quality of dependability and concern for his customer served him well. While I don't know what the exact numbers are for the sales and profitability of Johnnie Walker Scotch, I can tell you that it is still a wonderful business as part of the company Diageo. I can also report that we are and have been long-term shareholders of that firm. I think the phrase established in 1820 packs more power than the 80 proof inside the bottle. Think for a minute about what has happened since 1820. Revolutions, civil wars, world wars, the harnessing of electricity, railroads, telephones, jet engines, modern medicine, the internet, whatever else you can think of. The list of changes since 1820 goes on a bit. The fact that this is still a valuable brand suggests that dedication to quality matters. The human quality of taking responsibility to treat your customers well served Johnnie Walker, and it continues to serve us over 200 years later. The second bottle of Johnnie Walker, the black, attests to the fact that the liquid inside the bottle is at least 12 years old. I've often joked that if I get fired from this job, I want my next job to be a maker of 12-year-old Scotch whiskey. That way, it will be at least 11 3/4 years before anybody can tell if I know what I'm doing or not. Now, of course, making 12-year-old scotch is not a process in which the outcome should be a surprise. There are steps and there are processes that should be followed to increase the likelihood of a good outcome when the 12-year-old batch is revealed to the marketplace. That process can take time, though, and contain stretches where it doesn't look like progress is taking place. It requires patience and conviction that doing the right thing over and over again will yield a good result in the fullness of time. Doing the right thing over and over again is what we do at Markel. And I'd like to share some of the financial outcomes of those vintages of 12-year-old batches of Markel. The 12-year measuring rod resonates this year because Markel went public in 1986. If you follow the 12-year batch increments starting in 86, the second batch would fall in 1998, the third in 2010, and the fourth in 2022, where we stand today. Now, I know that there are many ways to think about the financial value of Markel and how to measure our progress. Measured over 12-year intervals, these are the numbers I used to get a general sense of how we are doing in describing the financial progress of building one of the world's great companies. In our first year as a public company, you can see that we earned underwriting profits of $1.9 million. Markel Ventures didn't exist at the time, so the EBITDA from the Ventures engine that year was zero. Similarly, our broader insurance activities like Nephila and State National were not yet in the family, so the contribution there was also zero. The total investment portfolio built up from our insurance operations was $29.9 million, and we had cash of $640,000. We owed $2.7 million in debt, and there were 3.6 million shares outstanding. If I were valuing the company, I would make the assumption that Markel would operate with an underwriting profit and that the insurance business would grow over time. If I believed that was true, I could simply take the total investment portfolio, subtract out the debt, and divide that sum by the number of shares outstanding. That math would yield a suggestion of what each share of Markel would be worth. You can do your own math from those factors and draw your own conclusions. In the 1986 vintage year, each share of Markel sold for a little less than $10. Rolling forward 12 years to 1998, the Markel insurance operations did indeed produce underwriting profits, and they did indeed grow. Underwriting profits that year were $5.1 million. Ventures and the other insurance businesses still were not part of Markel, so their contribution to the overall value of the company remained constant at zero. By this time, the cumulative profits of our insurance and investment activities created a portfolio of $1.48 billion, and we had cash of $1.5 million against debt of $243 million. Doing the same math 12 years later would provide you with a new theoretical number for what a share of Markel might be worth. The market price at that time was $181 a share. Roll forward 12 more years to 2010. Incidentally, that is the year that Richie and I became co-presidents of Markel. By 2010, we demonstrated that in that 12-year interval, our insurance business both grew and earned underwriting profits. Underwriting profits that year were $59.8 million. Additionally, Markel Ventures was now on the scene. In that year, Ventures produced EBITDA of $23.9 million. Our Nephila and State National operations were not yet part of Markel, so they don't factor into that year's calculation of theoretical value. The total investment portfolio stood at roughly $7.5 billion, with cash of about $750 million and debt of slightly over $1 billion. There were 9.7 million shares outstanding, and the stock price closed that year at about $378. Now that Markel Ventures existed in 2010, I, as an analyst, would follow the same steps of calculating how much portfolio per share existed at Markel, but I would add some value of Markel Ventures to the calculation. I would take the EBITDA and I would choose a reasonable multiple to get an overall value of Markel Ventures. I would divide that number by the number of shares outstanding and add the two pieces of value together to get a sense of what I thought Markel might theoretically be worth. Now we're in 2022, and a new 12-year vintage of Markel is in its final stages. If I use the numbers from 2021 as a guidepost for what 2022 might be like, here's where the batch stands today, 11 1/4 years into the vintage. In 2021, our insurance businesses continued to grow and produced underwriting profits of $628 million. The cumulative profitability of our insurance, investment, and ventures operations created an investment portfolio of $23.4 billion and cash of almost $4 billion. The debt against that stands at roughly $4.4 billion. I would divide the net investments behind each share of Markel to calculate one component of our theoretical value as things now stand. I'd then consider the Markel Ventures EBITDA of roughly $400 million and the Nephila and State National contributions of roughly $100 million and multiply that by the same reasonable multiple that I would have used in 2010 to get a theoretical sense of what that portion of Markel might be worth. I'd add both sums together to complete the analytical task of developing some sense of what a share of Markel might be worth. Now you can do your own math as to what the theoretical value of each share of Markel would be following this approach. I know others might use different methodologies and different calculations. As for me, this is how I think of how to quantify the financial results of what we are building at Markel. Now the numbers I've shared with you are just the tangible and calculable components of how someone could follow a mathematical formula to estimate what Markel is worth and how we're doing. What any single calculation can never capture, though, is the intangible value of how each part of Markel is better off because it is part of all of Markel. As my favorite coach, John Wooden, used to say, the main ingredient of stardom is the rest of the team. We've got an all-star team created by the diversity and resilience and reinforcement that each of us bring to the other. In the last chart, you can see the long-term actual market price per share. That line is not the exact same line as what you would use calculating by using my methodology. The actual price line does correlate highly to that line that you can calculate year by year using my method. To me, that suggests that my valuation method is at least directionally correct. Whichever line you look at, whether it is the actual price per share as quoted on the New York Stock Exchange or the theoretical line I described, the direction is up and to the right. Your management team is committed to the win-win-win architecture of operating Markel in such a way that our customers, our fellow associates, and our shareholders all win. We're also committed to making those wins durable and long-lasting. Sam Markel might have described it differently when he started Markel in 1930, but in practice, the company operated with the same principles. His sons continued his legacy, and his grandsons and grandson-in-law did the same. We dream about win-win-win. When I started at Markel, we had about 300 people in this company. Today, that number exceeds 20,000. I'm dedicated to the proposition that each of those 20,000 will serve their customers and each other, and that we will all be better off as we distill each batch of the Markel vintages. I hope that by walking through the numbers of how the financial results of those efforts continue to mature, you can see how powerful and valuable this dedication to human values plays out over time. I look forward to reporting back to you 12 years from now in 2034, as well as each year along the way, to see how today's vintage develops. Please don't fire me in the interim. I want to thank my colleagues for their constant support and partnership. We've got a great team at Markel, and I'm so grateful to be part of it. Thank you. With that, we now look forward to answering your questions. We've got two microphones here, and just line up as I recognize you. I'm going to recognize someone who drove 10 hours to get here today, Mr. Stacy. We recognize you for the first question.
Thank you, Tom. I am indeed Jeff Stacy from Waterloo, Ontario, Canada, and I'm a Markel shareholder. I asked this question this morning at the C-suite sessions and got responses from 3 of the Markel Ventures operating company heads, and so I thought I'd like to get your perspective on this as well. So the Markel style and the decentralized operating culture and structure of Markel are well known, and it's served us all very well. With that said, the last 2 years has been a rather extreme time in life generally and for business, and I just wondered if that in any way changed the operating culture, in any way changed in the last couple of years. Perhaps you offering more support to the Markel Ventures companies, or perhaps them asking for more support. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks for the question, Jeff, and I'm going to invite my partner, Mike Heaton, who shares the responsibility for Markel Ventures with me from the beginning, to chime in for a moment. But here's what I'll say. Thank God for our decentralized structure. So as Mike and I, whose offices are next to one another, in the depths of the pandemic, would stare at one another, and we would get some calls from some of the CEOs, and we would call them. And I guess it's one of those Friday night kind of situations. Like, I don't know, what do you want to do? So I can just share with you that none of us knew what we were looking at. None of us knew the depths of how we would fall. But everybody buckled down and became creative and figured out ways. And as Susan Gaynor, one of our CEOs of Parkland Ventures, says, stay on the horse. We had CEOs who were used to riding horses, used to doing it without needing Mike or me to help them, and they figured out how to stay in that rodeo in amazing ways, and they continue to do so today. Because whatever challenges we faced, which were unique in the pandemic, we now face a uniquely challenging business environment with supply chain, as Hunter Lansing, who runs Lansing Building Products, called it, I think he was the first one who called it, supply chain roulette every day, and inflationary forces and labor market challenges. So thank God you're not relying on Mike or me or Andrew to know the answers to these. We've got a team of diverse CEOs who know their businesses far better than we ever will. And I think our structure encourages and allows the freedom and creativity to find solutions that we would never find in the home office.
Yeah, not dissimilar from your comments, Tom. I would say 2 things changed, though. One, as Tom just elaborated, we had great confidence in this system of trust and autonomy going into some of the darker days of 2020, and that confidence was amplified manyfold through that experience. So that was change. Secondly, I would say our management and leadership teams went into that circumstance with the understanding that they had the full responsibility of operating their businesses, and within a couple of months of that, they had an even clearer understanding of that responsibility. It was up to them, and it was an absolute marvel to see the job that they did within the system of trust and shared culture. I don't think there's a single decision we'd go back and second guess, not one.
I think there's a microphone over there too that nobody's using for another line, but we got another questioner here.
Hi, hello, my name is Chris Freed. I'm from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Markel shareholder. Recently, Berkshire purchased Allegheny Insurance. I'm wondering, do you see additional consolidation in the insurance industry, and what role do you see Markel playing?
Well, I do see additional consolidation in the industry. That's sort of been the history of the industry for a long time, and I do see Markel playing a role. We started in 1986 in the initial public offering, and we had one underwriting unit at the time. I believe that was the Essex Insurance Company. And part of the reason for what happened, what brought about the IPO in 1986, was to provide capital for, it was a year later, a partial acquisition of Shan Morahan in a 2-step deal but adding capital enabled us to begin the process of being one of the consolidators in the insurance industry. And we've done 10 deals, I don't know, total. As Richie says, we only do a really big, double the size of the company deal about once every 10 years because we need about 10 years to forget how miserable it was when we did it and be willing to do another one. But no, that is our history and our pattern, and we would expect to be an acquirer and grow through acquisitions as we consistently have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Rith. I'm from Richmond, shareholder of Markel. Markel follows Berkshire type of investment, but Buffett says when you have a good idea, big bet. And if I'm not wrong, the Markel's investment, the big investment was in 2019, Google 2%. So why just 2%?
Well, first off, and this is probably not breaking news to people who know me well, Warren Buffett is smarter than I am. Just got to admit that. So when you know something, the degree of conviction you can have about that should be tempered by how smart you are and how good you are at what you do. So clearly he has been spectacular over the years, and I think as such has earned the right and the privilege to make more concentrated bets, which have more risk of creating more volatile financial results, some of which can be good. Volatility goes both ways. It can be better or it can be worse. So our investment portfolio has historically been a bit more diversified than what Buffett runs at Berkshire. That said, sometimes it's misleading. If you look at our top 20 names of the things that are the most important to us, that top 20 names is about 60% of the portfolio. So in institutional money management standards, that's a pretty concentrated way of doing things. So we salute the fact that if you have a good idea, in fact, I talk about him all the time here in Richmond, Virginia, because I like to. Ulysses S. Grant used to say, if you have the big gun, shoot it. So when we have a big gun, we shoot it. But Buffett is better than that, we are, so we'll remain humble about our skills and ability and taking the risk of concentrating too much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything here? Up. Adam is pointing.
Thank you for this
Okay,
opportunity. My name is Darrell Downing. I live in Richmond. I'm here as the result of a proxy. A basic test of an insurance company's ethics is whether it will insure a new thermal coal mine in the midst of a climate crisis that's fueled by the burning of coal and other fossil fuels. In addition to its impact on the climate, the massive Adani Carmichael thermal coal mine in Australia has terrible local environmental impacts and does not have the free, prior, and informed consent of the local indigenous people. 44 of the world's biggest insurers will not insure this coal mine, either specifically naming this project or as one they won't touch or via a broader coal policy. Why hasn't Markel refused to insure this project, and what do you think that says about the company's ethics?
Well, thank you for your question, and I think, as I recall, you came last year.
Yes, sir.
And we chatted about this, and we would say the same thing this year as we did last year. We don't specifically talk about any insured in any line of business at any point. And just as was the case last year, the fact of the matter is if somebody has an insurance policy, that in and of itself is disclosing something about their circumstances that we believe we should not disclose about them as an insured. So we're not going to assert that we do or don't insure that particular project in the same way that we would not say whether we covered anything in any particular line of our business. Now, the concerns that you have, I understand those, and I don't disagree with many of the points that you're making. And I would hope you would give us credit for having been in business over 90 years and having the Markel values and the style and the creed in which we operate, that we would be well aware of the specific risks that would be associated with that particular project and the thermal coal business and things that you're talking about. So we're well aware. I don't disagree with your fundamental premises in that. We do think it's a matter of policy. It's not a good idea to say what we do or don't do in a broad brush way, because that would, among other things, violate the privacy that we want to respect for our customers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Tom. Adam Cecil, Gravity Capital, friend and shareholder of Markel for over 20 years. This question is for Richie and Jeremy. Richie, as you noted, hardest market in maybe recent memory, certainly one of the hardest or most favorable insurance markets in a generation. Two questions. How does this compare to other hard markets, number one? And number two, how long do you see it lasting?
Thanks for the question. Can you hear that?
Just get a little closer.
Hello?
There you go.
There we go. They're all different. I would say, well, and also let's just be fair. I've been in this business 30 some years, and I think I've seen 2.5 hard markets. They just don't come around very often. And this one is different. The last hard market came about, it started after the bottom was sort of 99 and results were terrible and capital was being destroyed. You had a number of companies who actually went out of business. And then on top of that, the tragedy of 9/11 happened. And so there was a lot of factors that led to that hard market. And that was an extremely hard market in certain lines of business. And I would say that was largely driven by the destruction of capital. This hard market has been different. There is plentiful capital in our industry. Some people are reluctant to deploy it right now, or were reluctant to deploy it in recent times because of the return profiles. But there's lots of capital there, but there does appear to be things like lower interest rates, COVID-19. I mean, this hard market might have started to tail off quicker, but the disruption that occurred from COVID-19, the disruption from financial markets, the disruption from inflation. So each one of the roughly 3 that I've seen have had different factors that contributed to them. We've passed, at least at this point, unless something else occurs, we've passed the peak of this hard market. You can feel the fact that people, pricing has gotten to a point where certain people are adjusting their underwriting appetite and saying, hey, I think at that rate I can make money. And so you can feel people either looking at the market or coming back into certain markets. But the one thing I would say that's been good is it's been sort of a gradual tail on this market. It hasn't really fallen off. In fact, I think I said on the last earnings call, probably 6 months ago, I would have thought rates would have been off more than they are at this point. So there's a lot of factors out there that have led to, I would say, greater underwriting discipline than we might have otherwise seen. Jeremy?
Maybe the one thing I would sort of add to that, I think the discipline across the market's important. I would also say beyond just the sort of market dynamics for us at Markel, and Richie was touching upon this earlier, our results right now in the insurance engine extend well beyond just it being a favorable market environment as far as pricing. So what we've done with regards to portfolio construction, the product capabilities in our relationships, and where we're choosing to grow, and the products we're emphasizing, the talent we have on board, they're all oriented towards us sort of building towards this idea of consistent top financial performance. Because what we recognize is regardless of where we are in the cycle, we need to, in a sustainable fashion, deliver that strong, high-quality underwriting performance. So if part of that question in a way is, gosh, if the hard market changes, what could that mean for the underlying financial performance? Collectively, across 5,000 folks on the insurance side, we're focused on that not being a degradation of our ability to generate high returns on capital and generate sort of meaningful underwriting profitability.
Yeah, let me just add one thing to what Richie and Jeremy said. If you look at the long-term financial record of Markel, and every year in the annual report, we put 21 years of data out there, and we do that every year, which I think in and of itself is a marker of the long-term nature of the thinking and the way we do things. Well, as Richie pointed out, hard markets are few and far between, and yet, as we talked about our 12-year batches, we've gone from $1 million underwriting profit and an $8 stock to $600 million of underwriting profits and a $1,400 stock. There have been long stretches that we've operated within soft markets, and a hard insurance market may or may not correlate to what's happening in the bakery equipment business or the fire sprinkler protection business or so on and so forth. One of the features of Markel is that because we have the opportunity to look at our insurance business, look at our ventures businesses, look at publicly traded securities, and or repurchase our own stock, and do any and all of those at any given point in time, we think we can build the value of the company. And those are things that we can do, that we can take responsibility for, that are things you have control over. What's happening in general market conditions and general insurance prices, we have no control over. So we really just don't think about it that much. Sir.
I'm Ken Majmadar from New Jersey. I'm the founder of Ridgewood Investments, Markel shareholder for probably 24 years. My question is on Markel Ventures. I'd like to get a little more of your thinking on how much capital is deployed and what the ROI has been on those efforts. I know it's still relatively early days, so I'm sort of asking for sort of like a report card of what you expected to happen versus what happened, where we are in that journey so far, and how you think about where to put the incremental dollar of capital, whether it's in a publicly traded security or a Markel Ventures opportunity or something else.
Sure. Well, thank you for your question and for your long-term ownership of Markel. At any time we allocate a dollar of capital to any spot in our business, whether it's insurance, ventures, publicly traded securities, or buying in our own stock, we think we should earn double-digit returns, and we do that. And I can report to you that in Markel Ventures, we've done that and continue to do that. Now, we accept volatility, and if you want to talk about a quarter or a year, perhaps that number might not be apparent and obvious, but over the 5-year sort of batches which we measure ourselves and hold ourselves accountable to in our own incentive compensation, every single one of those choices has yielded double-digit returns. And what we do when confronted with any given opportunity is we sort of think, where do we think we will earn the best results? And we don't have a predetermined point of view. We just go to work every day. We look at the set of opportunities across the spectrum of Markel, and we do the one that we think will work out the best. And in general, the Markel Ventures companies have met the expectations that we have, that they've produced double-digit returns on the capital we've invested in them. Sir.
Hey Tom, my name is Joey Opekin. I've been a shareholder for 3 years, just about to start my 4th. I had a question coming today, and then you all answered it during the presentation, so I'll go to my last year's question because I was so satisfied with the result. Tom, you're such a well-read reader. Do you have another book suggestion for me?
Well, we have a couple of authors here with us. I think I talked about Morgan Housel.
Yes.
So Steve said it was first annual meeting. His first annual meeting as a director. He was actually here last year, and I did talk about that. Adam Cecil, who asked the question just before you, you can, I think, buy one of his books out in the corridor there. I would recommend that. The other book that I've been talking about when people ask me that question this year, there's a book called The Long Gray Line, and it is about the class of 1966 at West Point, written by Rick Atkinson. It's a wonderful book. It's a hard book to read because it's emotional at times. My takeaway from that book, and this applies to how I think about business and life, is that I say there are certain kinds of mistakes that only experts can make. And when you think you know, and you have all the training and expertise, sometimes you can be overconfident in your decisions. This almost ties to the question we were asked earlier about diversification in the portfolio. So there's a balance to be struck. You should pursue expertise. You should pursue training. You should pursue learning and knowing more and more and more about things all the time. But when you make that jump to a conclusion, you might get yourself in trouble. So have some humility to go along with the diligence of trying to acquire the appropriate expertise. But Long Gray Line is a wonderful book. That's my pick for the year.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Sir.
Alan Glenn from Fairfax, Virginia. I've been a shareholder for a decade, but this is my first annual meeting here. My compliments to the folks that organized the morning panels, very thoughtful and informative, and a lot of great comments and ideas. My question is, I read about the investment in Haggerty in the annual letter, and I'd be interested in any more color, including how you think it'll unfold over the next few years.
Sure, let me turn that to, thanks for coming. Let me turn that to Richie, who's the architect of how the Haggerty relationship came to be.
Sure. Well, the Haggerty relationship, it's a beautiful example of how, we go out, we meet like-minded people. We started doing some pretty small amounts of business together. I think we started out by helping them with their commercial book, which at the time was not very large. And that worked out well. We liked working together, and that turned into an opportunity to become their risk-bearing partner on the entire classic auto portfolio. And McKeel and his team, they have just executed on their plan beautifully. You might have saw they went public last year. They're building an ecosystem around the car enthusiast market. And at the center of the ecosystem is the insurance product, which, in my opinion, they are, without a doubt, the best at, taking care of the enthusiast market and covering them with a great product. And they're building out around that with the ecosystem. So, we of course invested a few years ago when there was the opportunity, and we're very grateful to be continuing to be partners in a larger way with McKeel and the entire Haggerty organization. And, you're probably going to be surprised to hear me say, I think the future is very bright for what they have built and what they're going to do going forward.
Thanks. Thank you. Sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Pat Gongson. I'm from Arlington, Virginia, and I've been a shareholder since 2007. My question is, can you please reflect on the acquisition of Altera that was made in 2013? Lessons learned, the benefit to the company, etc.
Sure. And I'll let Richie take the first response.
Altera, I think that was a fantastic deal for us. It provided us the opportunity to become larger in the retail part of the market. And as I talked about in my comments, we have a desire to continue to become more meaningful in the retail channel. We want to do that in a way that doesn't conflict with our long-term wholesale partners, but we think there's plenty of business in the retail channel that does not find its way to wholesale. And so, that really was the beginning for us. We had only very small retail type business at that before Altera, and that brought that business to us. The reinsurance business came to us as a result of Altera. I'm very glad to have reinsurance as part of the overall platform. The most important thing it brought to us was talent, people. I'm looking around the crowd here today, and I see a lot of people who joined us as a result of that acquisition who are in very senior positions now with the enlarged Markel organization. And all I could say is I think certainly we didn't do everything right in that acquisition. You never do, and we're gonna make mistakes from time to time. But that's one that I think has just been superlative in terms of what it's done for our organization over time. Jeremy or Tom?
Yeah, I'll just add to Richie's point about talent, and so my eye catches Brian Sanders there as an example. Wave, Brian. We're glad Brian is part of the company. He came through Altera. Now, to be fair, what a critic would say about Altera was that it added reinsurance to our mix. And reinsurance the last couple of years is not an area where we've covered ourselves in glory. Now, if you look over the longer term history of reinsurance, just like the question about how we allocate capital, reinsurance has to earn the same returns as any other component throughout Markel. And over the course of many years, it has. In any given year, it might not, and it might even have a couple of years where it doesn't. So we understand the concern that people might have, but we think we have wonderful people running that business. There's wonderful talent, wonderful culture that's become part of the organization, and as part of Markel as a whole, it's one of those things that has made us bigger and better over time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. It looks like the Q&A queue is finished. So again, we thank you for coming. We invite you to join us for beer, refreshments, a t-shirt, some food, some conversation over in the pavilion. Thanks again so much for being with us. Thank you.